My name's Steve Goff, aka Turoe, Bristol Graffiti artist.
How did you first get into graffiti?
I was about 12, 13, and somebody at school showed me subway art, and there was an exhibition in Bristol at Arnold Feeney, and it basically sparked my interest, and I saw a couple of pieces around town by 3D. So me and a few of my mates who were into it at the time would get on our bikes and ride around Bristol searching out the graffiti spots and taking photographs. And that combined with subway art literally just went in my brain. Something clicked and I started drawing it and figuring out how to do it bit by bit. Then a programme on telly was aired called Style Wars, which was all about American graffiti on trains and stuff. So, and that was it. From then on, I just wanted to do it and figure out how to do it. So that's what we did.
Do you think Bristol is the home of graffiti?
Not necessarily, because the home is obviously where it started, which would be New York or Philadelphia. It's an American culture, is not an English culture. It's been borrowed and packaged up and sold to us as part of hip hop. But yeah, Bristol has definitely been a big part of graffiti in general, in traditional graffiti, because through the 80s until now is still going. So it's like 35, 40 years later, and it has been quite big, but now obviously globally it's all over the place. So there's every country and every city in every country has got a graffiti scene. Some are bigger, some are smaller. But yeah, it's pretty big.
What do you think of how graffiti's developed over time?
It's turned into something else from when I started. Obviously, it was all about letters and characters, and traditionally like a New York style, and then an English sort of style. If you look towards London, is developed massively because obviously the paint is manufactured and made for graffiti artists or street artists, whoever. So it's a lot easier to control and a lot better in pigment. And we were just using cans of car paint, and you had about 10 different colours, and they weren't that very good, to be honest. So we were doing it pretty much in the dark and not with permission. So it was quite hard to do. Nowadays you can do photorealistic stuff, you can do anything you can put your mind to, basically. And you don't necessarily have to stick to traditional graffiti mediums. You could use paints, hand paints, you can basically, anything you can get your hands on you can use and make pretty pictures, really, for the public if you want.
Do you have any insider thoughts on Operation Anderson, and were you involved in any way?
Yeah, I was. Basically, the police did this big operation in the 80s to crack down on Bristol graffiti because a lot of us was going out and doing it illegally. We used to meet at Barton Hill Club, where me and my friends, a load of us, formed a crew and used to go out and write on trains and buses and train tracks and stuff where you weren't necessarily supposed to do it, but it was part of the culture. And they thought they'd crack down on it because it was getting too big. So I got caught up in my house getting raided and all my stuff, pictures and photos and that, taken by the police because somebody had a diary with my name and telephone number in it, who I knew, and the police caught him tagging, I think, on Lawrence Hill, and raided his house and found the diary. So that's how they found out who everybody was. That pieced together with John Nation from Barton Hill, they decided that he was telling us what to do and we were going out and doing it, which wasn't the truth. Obviously, we went there because we were allowed to paint there, so we had a common ground in the fact that we all like to paint at Barton Hill, and then we'd go out and do other stuff at our side of town. And so yeah, it was quite a shock, really, when I went home and my bedroom was stripped of everything and they'd taken everything. My mum and dad weren't too pleased, but they weren't too bad about it, really, considering. Got arrested and went to court about 7 or 8 times, basically, because they keep gathering the evidence and they were trying to trial all of us in one group rather than individually. So there's a lot of stuff they had to go through. and they couldn't do it really, so they basically just fined us for what we admitted to, and what they could fine us for. So I had a fine in community service along with a couple of my mates. My dad paid the fine, and I think I paid him back like a fiver a week. It was £800, and that was back in the 80s, and I was only 16 on YTS, so it's quite a lot of money. He paid it, I paid him back like £5 a week for years, and did like a couple of hours a time on a Sunday morning making jigsaws at the local YMCA with a couple of my other mates. I didn't really take it that seriously at the time, although when they did say I could actually go to prison for it, it was a bit of a shock, because I didn't think it was that serious, if you know what I mean. And then they made a programme on it, Drawing the Line, which was on BBC, and since then it's sort of put the spotlight back on Bristol. Well, then it put the spotlight on Bristol as the place to go to see graffiti. And that's what happened. Well, basically we stopped for a bit. Obviously doing illegal stuff, it sort of stamped it out for a little while, and some of the people who were doing it back then had stopped completely and gone off and did other things, and a few of us stuck with it. And lucky enough, a few of us and a few of them, not necessarily me, but a few of my mates are good enough now to earn a living out of it. And obviously with the Banksy effect is quite a good thing in Bristol.